Hari Om, and welcome to the very last session of 2021. We are finishing with the chanting of the third chapter, and we will also cover a little bit of the sadhanas from this chapter, and also a little bit of introduction to the chapter 4. So with that, let's get started. Om. 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 Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma Vitvishavahay. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. We'll chant the Dhyana Shlokas here. Om Parthaya Pratibodhitam Bhagavata Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Gratitam Purana Muninam Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitam Rudavarshinim Bhagavatim Ashtadashadhyayinim Ambatvam anusantatami Bhagavad Gita bhavatveshini. Namostute Vyasa Vishala Buddhe Kullara Vindayata Patra Netra Yena Tvaya Bharata Taila Purnaha Prajwalito Jnanamayah Pradipaha Prapanna Parijataya Totra Vetraikapanaye Jnanamudraya Krishnaya Geetamrutatuhe Namaha. Sarvadharman Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam Vraja Aham Tva Sarva Papebhyaha Mokshayishyami ma shuchaha. So we are finishing Bhagavad Gita chapter 3. As I mentioned earlier, we will just go through some of the sadhanas in this chapter. So I'm pretty much going to put the presentation that I put last time, which was a summary of the whole Bhagavad Gita chapter. And here we'll have a little bit of discussion on what is it from Bhagavad Gita, chapter 3, that we can take it for ourselves as a sadhana. So we will do that. And then we will do we'll probably do the chanting. And if we have time, we will go into a little bit of introduction of chapter 4. But before I go there, I want to ask any questions on this so far. Okay, so let us get started on that then. I will stop sharing here and I will pull up my chanting presentation. Let us see here. I think is my whole. Yes. Let me share this again. So can you see my full screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So yeah, so we'll start with the chanting here. Om Shri Paramatmane Namaha. Atha Tritiyoodhyayaha. Arjuna Uvacha. Okay, I said we would look into sadhanas, right? So maybe we will, okay, we will do the chanting and then look at the sadhanas. Arjuna Uvacha Jayasi Chet Karmanaste Mata Buddhir Janardana Tatkim Karmani Ghore Mam Niyojayasi Keshava Vyamishreneva Vakyena Buddhim Mohayasi Vame Tadekam Vada Nishchitya Yena shreyohamapnuyam. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Lokesmin vividha nishtha Pura prokta maya nagha Jnana yogena sankhyanam Karma yogena yoginam Na karmana manarambhat Naishkarmyam purushoshnute nacha sanyasana siddhim samadhi gacchati nahi kaschit kshanamapi jatu tishthatya karma krit karyate hyavashah karma sarva prakriti jair gunaihi karmendriyani sanyamya Ya aste manasa smaran indriyarthan vimudhatma mithyascarasa uchyate yastvindriyani manasa niyam yarabadherjuna karmendriyahi karma yogam asakthassa vishishyate niyatam kuru karmatvam Karma jyayo hya karmanaha sharira yatra pichate na prasidhyeda karmanaha yajñarthat karmanon yatra lokoyam karma bandhanaha tadartam karma kaunteya mukta sangha samachara Sahayagnya praja srishtva purovacha prajapatihi anena prasavishyadhvam eshavostvishta kamadhuk devan bhavayatanena te deva bhavayantu vaha parasparam bhavayantaha Shreya paramavapsyata Ishtan bhogan hi vo devaha Dasyante yajna bhavitaha Taidartana pradayebhyaha Yo bhungte stena evasaha Yajna shishtashinas santaha Muchyante sarva kilpishaihi Bhunjate tvektvagam papaha Ye pachantyatma karanat Annad bhavanti bhutani Parjanyat anna sambhavaha Yajñat bhavati parjanyaha Yajna karma samudbhavaha Karma brahmodbhavam vidhi Brahmakshara samudbhavam Tasmat sarvagatam brahma Nityam yajne pratishthitam Evam pravartitam chakram Nanuvartayati hayaha Aghayurindriya ramaha Mogham partha sajivati Yastvat marati revasyat Atmatriptascha manavaha आत्मन्येव च सन्तुष्टः तस्य कार्यं न विद्यते नैव तस्य कृते नार्थः नाकृते नेह कश्चन न चास्य सर्वभूतेषु कश्चिदर्थव्यपाश्रयः तस्मादसक्तः सततं कार्यं कर्म समाचर असक्तो ह्याचरन् कर्म परमाप्नोति पूरुषः कर्मणैव हि संसिद्धिम् आस्तिता जनकादयः लोकसङ्ग्रहमेवापि सम्पश्यन् कर्तुमर्हसि यद्यदाचरति श्रेष्ठः तत्तदेवेतरो जनः स यत्प्रमाणं कुरुते लोकस्तदनुवर्तते न मे पार्थासि कर्तव्यं त्रिषु लोकेषु किंचन नानवाप्तमवाप्तव्यं वर्त एव च कर्मणि यदि ह्यहं न वर्तेयं जातु कर्मण्यतन्द्रितः मम वर्त्मानुवर्तन्ते मनुष्याः पार्थ सर्वशः उत्सीदेयुरिमे लोकाः न कुर्यां कर्म चेतहं संकरस्य च कर्ता स्याम् उपहन्यामि माः प्रजाः सक्ता कर्मण्य विद्वांसः यथा कुर्वन्ति भारत कुर्याद् विद्वान् तथा सक्तः चिकीर्षुः लोकसङ्ग्रहम् न बुद्धिभेदं जनयेत् अज्ञानां कर्मसङ्गिनां जोषयेत् सर्वकर्माणि विद्वान् युक्तः समाचरन् प्रकृते क्रियमाणानि गुणैः कर्माणि सर्वशः अहंकार विमूढात्मा कर्ताहमिति मन्यते तत्त्ववित्तु महाबाहो गुणकर्म विभागयोः गुणा गुणेषु वर्तन्ते इति मत्वा न सज्जते प्रकृते गुणसम्मूढाः सज्जन्ते गुणकर्मसु तान् कृत्स्नविदोन्मन्दान् कृत्स्नविन्न विचालयेत् मयि सर्वाणि कर्माणि सन्न्यस्याध्यात्मचेतसा निराशीर्निर्ममो भूत्वा युध्यस्व विगतज्वरः ये मे मतमिदं नित्यम् अनुतिष्ठन्ति मानवाः श्रद्धावन्तो न सूयन्तः मुच्यन्ते तेऽपि कर्मभिः ये त्वेतदप्यसूयन्तः नानुतिष्ठन्ति मे मतम् सर्वज्ञानविमूढांस्तान् विद्धि नष्टान् चेतसः सदृशं चेष्टते स्वस्याः प्रकृते ज्ञानवानपि प्रकृतिं यान्ति भूतानि निग्रह किं करिष्यति इन्द्रियस्येन्द्रियस्यार्थे रागद्वेषौ व्यवस्थितौ तयोर्न वशमागच्छेत् तौ हस्य परिपन्तिनौ श्रेयान् स्वधर्मो विगुणः paradharmat swanushtitat swadharme nidhanam shreyah paradharmo bhayavaha. Arjuna uvacha atha kena prayuktoyam papam charati purushaha anichannapi varshneya baladiva niyojitaha. Shri Bhagavan uvacha kama esha krodha esha rajo guna samudbhavaha mahashano mahapapma vidyenamiha vairinam dhumena vanhihi yatha darsho malena cha yathol vrito garbha tatha tenedam avritam avritam jnanametena jnanino nitya vairina kamarupena kaunteya dushpurena nalena cha indriyani mano buddhihi asyadhisthanamuchyate etai vimohayatyeshaha jnanamavritya dehinam tasmad indriyan yadav niyamya bharatarshabha papmanam prajahikyenam jnana vijnana nashanam indriyani paranyahuhu indriyebhyah param manaha manasastu para buddhihi yo bhunte paratastu saha evam buddhe param buddhva samsthabhyatmanam atmana jahi shatrum mahabhaho kamarupam durasadam. Om Tat Sat iti Srimad Bhagavad Gitasu Upanishadsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Shri Krishna Arjuna Samvade Karma Yogo Nama Tritiyo Dhyayaha Sarvadharman Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam Vraja Aham Tva Sarva Papebhyaha Mokshayishyami Ma Sutaham Shuchaha. So this was the last shloka that we had to just see it. It basically just says that Om Tat Sat, Tat referring to that Paramatman, Sat, Tat Sat, Srimad Bhagavad Gita Su. So we are coming to the end of the third chapter, which is named as Karma Yoga. This is what is said here. And it is basically a Shri Krishna Arjuna Samvade. Shri Krishna Arjuna Samvada. So it basically means this is a samvada or a dialogue which is happening between Shri Krishna and Arjuna. So this is not really a debate, but it is a dialogue which is happening. And it is about the topic of discussion in the bigger picture. It is about the Brahma Vidya, the knowledge of the self. So Brahma Vidya, Yoga Shastra. So the goal is, so the path which is leading to it is the Yoga Shastra, which is the literature, if you want to say it that way. So Yoga Shastra, and that is but Brahma Vidya is actually the goal, and it is the essence. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Upanishadsu. So it is basically the essence of the Upanishads is in the Bhagavad Gita. And that is all that he's trying to say, that if we understand Bhagavad Gita, we actually understand the essence of the Upanishads, which is nothing but leading us to the understanding of our own true self, which is Brahma Vidya, and Yoga Shastra is the path. So that brings us to the end of the chapter 3. And I sincerely invoke the blessings of the Lord and the blessings of all our gurus, the whole Guru Parampara. And this chapter being so beautiful, let us practice every single thing which is there in this chapter, because as I said earlier, we are action-oriented people. We cannot keep quiet even for a minute, right? And that is one of the shlokas where it says, Na kaschit kshanamapi jatu tishtatya karma krita karyate hyavasha karma sarva prakriti jair gunaihi. That was one of the shlokas here. So we are action-oriented, we cannot sit quietly. And that is why the term, human doing is more appropriate for us than a human being, right? We are a human being, but we are actually more of a human doing person. So this chapter really addresses that, considering that I'm a human doing, how do I really act in the world? How do I take on my responsibilities? I'm a mother, I'm a father, I'm a worker, and I'm also a spiritual seeker. In all this, how do I act in this world? So that was the whole chapter here. And some of the sadhanas, I thought I would just, we'll go through. Last time we did a summary of the whole thing. We talked about our favorite shlokas and what were the shlokas that really resonated with us. But I thought we can take just about 10 minutes to go through some of the sadhanas, and I will disconnect here with this presentation and then go back to the other presentation, which was, let's see if I can. Okay, I think it's going back to my previous shlokas, but anyway, we can use the same presentation here. But before or maybe we'll see this. So first, these two, we don't have to worry about it. This is the shloka where I just said, where each one of us, we really cannot keep ourselves quiet. We are always helplessly made to do something or the other. And this is driven primarily by our own gunas, our own nature, prakriti. So we are helpless in this. We are constantly doing this. So for a person like us, meditation is really not the answer. I know it sounds a little too bold statement here, but in a sense, what we are trying to show here is meditation in its true essence of Vedanta. We are not there yet to practice that aspect, but then just sitting quietly, focusing my mind, focusing on my breath, all that is definitely very much necessary, because that helps me to calm my mind down. So that's the aspect what we saw here. And here, this is one of our key sadhana shlokas, which is, how do I bring, in order to even calm down, I need to bring my senses under control. So one way for us, and this is coming towards the end of the chapter 2, of the chapter 3, which is towards the end, shloka number 40 onwards. where we will see how the control of the senses is so very important. So with our five sense organs, the only way we can control then is not to expose ourselves to any of those things which can leak our senses away. So in that sense, this is trying to show us about that. And then here, the second sadhana which he's talking about here is doing the karma yoga through the organs of action, but not remaining attached to the outcome of it. Just doing, just do it. That's the sadhana here. And then this one, niyatam kuru karmatvam, bound in duty. This is another classic sadhana exercise. Is any action I take up, I need to think through and say, is this in line with my role? For example, my role in the family, my role in the society, my role in the company where I work, or what am I work related? That is where this niyatam kuru karmatvam, so focusing only on the duty, that is the sadhana here. And then yajna, this one to show that how the world is all about done in the yajna spirit. The whole world functions in a form of giving up an attachment to our own ego, but doing it because everything functions together. So that is the idea here. But the sadhana here is to say that we have been given this gift, and the gift is this Eshavo Svishta Kama Dukkha, which is giving up my desire. I know it sounds like, what does that mean? Well, how is this a cow as a gift? But this whole idea is that we've been given this ability to not focus only on what is in it for myself, but what is it that I can do for the environment. That's so how do I always focus on being that instrument through which I can perform an action. So that is here, that is told here. And here, of course, a beautiful sadhana to say that constantly look at the environment, constantly look at how the environment is helping us. So how can I give back to the environment? So, the plastic recycling, one of the things that really is highly impressed that I am even in in Ashok's house, for example, is there are no plastics at all. Everything is in stainless steel. So I'm amazed just by stainless steel and having a glass bottle, you're able to get rid of all plastics. So I know to whatever extent we can, this shloka really talks about those aspects of plastic recycling, helping the environment, whatever can help the environment, because by helping the environment will come and help us. And if I don't, then this is another sadhana where I have to first offer food to everybody and then only enjoy for myself. Again, another beautiful sadhana, which we have kind of gone away from it, but chapter 3 is trying to bring us back to explain to us is that if I don't do that, I'm actually a thief. If I don't offer something to the environment, to the people around me, then I'm only a thief, or I cannot be selfish in that regard. And then here, that's the same continuation of that shloka here. And this whole thing was, of course, about the cosmic wheel of action, how everything works together, giving us an appreciation again. And over here, we have an example to help us in terms of role model is a person who is evolving in this ladder of spirituality. That person constantly is getting away from thinking about on what is in it for me. So any action that is performed by a sage is done in a way that it is not a compulsion for that person to act. The person just does it. So there is no dependence to get anything out of it. That is a great person. That is a sage. So again, here, a lesson for Arjuna and a lesson for all of us to therefore perform our actions by not looking at what is in it for me, but doing it for the sake of the goodness of the society and everything. And again, examples from kings like Janaka to show that ultimately it is Loka Sangraha, only for protection of the masses. So too for us, whatever we do is doing it in a way in looking at the goodness of the society. And this is again a classic sadhana exercise, is walk the talk, no point in telling people what they should be doing, but showing it by way of action. That's sadhana, good sadhana here. And again, Krishna's giving his own examples about how Lord Krishna himself can be looked upon as a role model in this particular case, as far as action is concerned. And then here, again, another sadhana exercise for us is to, the next one, which is Na Buddhi Bedam Janayet, is to show that how I should act in a group, for example, a person who is very attached to a few material things. So for example, if I'm in a party or something like that, which of course, I'm using this example very liberally because I know we don't go for parties these days because we're very worried about Omicron at this time. But here the idea is, if I'm going to a party and if somebody's, wearing a lot of jewels or whatever, I shouldn't really go down to that person and say, oh my God, why are you so materialistic or anything like this? But just to recognize that everyone, enjoys whatever they do. So that's just an outcome of the shloka, is how I'm looking at it to talk about it. And here again, the emphasis is, for the first time, as I said, ahankar, the word ahankar is introduced here. It's about to recognize that, to go away from the fact that I'm this ego, I'm ahankar, and to recognize that at the end of the day, that I am that supreme Atman, Brahman consciousness, and whatever is happening at the level of my body, mind, intellect, which is driven by this ego, which is the false I, which I have taken it upon myself. So constantly the sadhana here is, whenever I'm doing something and somebody praises me, I recognize that it's not I who's doing it, but it is driven by my prakriti. And then of course, the classic shloka number 30, where we talked about in every action, constantly just surrender it to Lord Krishna. And this is being done whether it is, being free from hope for anything which is going to happen in the future, and anything which happened in the past, not to worry about it, and in focusing upon the present. So this is a good shloka for mindfulness and just surrendering my actions to the Lord. And developing faith, this is another, developing Shraddha in the teaching of Bhagavad Gita. And then to understand that at the end of the day, my personality is all about likes and dislikes. That is really what my personality is all about. So how can I detach myself in any action, in any situation, in such a way that I'm going towards it with too much of liking or a dislike of it, but I'm staying away. So how do I remain detached in everything? So that's another sadhana here. And then again, focusing on the duty, because duty in line with my dharma. And then ultimately, we saw about the aspect of desires, how we all have desires within us, whether they are sattvic desires, rajasic desires, or tamasic desires. And these were shown by the 3 examples here, which we went into quite a lot of detail, so I won't go there. But the sadhana for us is, how can I convert my desires, first of all, recognize what part of my desires are sattvic, rajasic, and tamasic, and how do I graduate from converting a tamasic desire to rajasic to a sattvic desire. And then ultimately, we saw the example of the chariot. The chariot represents our body, our mind are the reins, the horses are the five sense organs, and then the road on which it travels is the sense objects. And this is again tying this shloka to one of the earlier shlokas about how control of the senses is the very first step. So for all of us, the way the desire enters into a mind is through the senses. So if I can pull myself away from situations where I don't have to be there, where I know this can be an assault on my senses, trying to first, control of the senses is important, and then control of the mind, and then control of the intellect. This is the gradation in which this control is shown in how we can be practice desire management. And then the consciousness, and the way I can recognize that is only to pull myself by myself, that is looking at my lower. I know my internet connection is becoming unstable here. I hope it's okay. And so ultimately, I can only help by myself pulling my, my lower self to the higher self. That's what he's trying to say. And this can be done only through constant alertness at the intellect level. So just wanted to cover this sadhanas as well. Any other sadhanas that appeal to you or which you found coming out of this third chapter? Which, again, by the way, it's such a coincidence since this is the last lecture of the year and we are starting with the new year. Was there any things from here which can form a new year resolution for you for 2022? And if you want to share, great. And if you don't want to, that's also fine. But if you want to explain that in general terms, that is also good. Anything, Meena, which you want to share, or as a kind of a sadhana? You want to say something, Pradeep? Or
all these sadhanas are all wonderful, but implementing them, it's a lot of effort. And for me, I think the verse 12, which is the Istan Boganhi. Okay, can we do that? Yeah. The one, this one, the one which it talks about sharing. Okay, it's something sadhana which we can implement right away with the least amount of effort. Sharing your wealth, sharing your knowledge, sharing joy, and this being the end of the year. And the new year coming in, and charity comes to mind.
Yeah.
So that I like that with this time of the year, and it's easy to implement.
I agree with you. I think this it doesn't take too much effort, but yet at the same time, every time when I'm enjoying something for myself, I want to check, okay, is there somebody else who can also enjoy with me or give? I mean, you're right. There's a lot here. Like even in US, we have the Amish, not the Amish, the community out in Utah, for example. They have this thing of, giving 10% or 20% of the salary, whatever, to the church. So automatically that thing is inbuilt in them. And sometimes we need that inbuiltness to force ourselves to give, right?
Right.
Yeah, thank you. So this is an easy sadhana, can be practiced, and
Yeah, as you said, almost all the sadhanas, it's very difficult to practice. But I would personally think that maybe we can just start by doing meditation. So that will be, I mean, for me, I think that will be the first start, or something like that.
Mhm. So meditation, again, as I mentioned in the beginning of the chapter 3, the chapter 3 beginning part of it cautions us one thing on meditation, which is how do I define meditation? And of course, when we come to chapter 6 is all about meditation. We'll be going into a lot of details about it. But here, if I can think about meditation as contemplating on Krishna, for example, and thinking about the glories of the world, keeping my mind in that frame of mind, or even concentration, where I'm trying to use mantra japa as a way of concentration. Those are all very good meditative, quote unquote, meditative exercises. But the ultimate Vedantic exercise of meditation, which is focusing on Brahman, the consciousness principle, that is a little more difficult because we have all these sattvic, rajasic, and tamasic desires, right? So for that, we need a little more of a guided meditation in the beginning until it becomes a nature.
And also this 319, without attachment, do the best, perform your duties, and then, ultimately you can attain the Supreme Being. Maybe that also we can just try to start.
Yes.
At least try. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. That could be a nice, in a small way, a 2022 goal.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Anything that, Amlan, you look at as a sadhana, or?
Hari Om, Sunitha ji.
Hari Om, Amlan.
Yeah, I think Pradeep ji was mentioning that all these are very difficult. It is really all of these difficult, and the end goal of all this is basically to get purity of mind, which is basically you have to detach or create detachment to all the work. So how do we do that is basically like charity is one good thing. All the selfless action basically will help us to detach ourselves, and we have to create like more sattvic action to purify our mind. That's what I look at. The activities could be sharing things with others, and charity, selfless action mostly, where we don't expect anything back. Those kind of things will help us kind of purifying our mind and help us in detachment. But these are all definitely very difficult things. And until we get the purity of mind, I think the knowledge is, we might just know as information, it is not going to go inside. And also we will not be able to do meditation until we get purity of mind. That's how I think this.
No, you're right. I think there are two key things that Swami Tejomayananda would emphasize all the time. He would always say, you have to have purity of mind and clarity of thought. Purity of mind and clarity of thought. So, and they are, you could look at them as a sequential, because if you don't have purity of mind, you don't have clarity of thought. And if you don't have clarity of thought, this knowledge cannot really penetrate deeper within us.
Yes.
So purity of thought by converting every action into a sattvic action is important. Also putting our mind always in sattvic activities like, the satsang, which we do, or puja, japas, all that also purifies the mind. But ultimately, the end thing is whatever action I'm doing, I have to do it with understanding. Why am I doing this? Even the pujas, everything, if we have the why aspect of it built into it, the pujas themselves make a lot of meaningful things to us. Of course, if I have complete Shraddha in it, then we don't have to worry about it. But even if there is a slight doubt of why am I doing this, why am I forced to do it, all that, then the answers are very much there. But building the answers along with the ritual plays a big part into it. So the
Definitely.
clarity of the purity of mind and the clarity of thought is what I wanted to mention.
Yeah, definitely. So puja, I think chanting of the God name and charity, and then satsang, reading books, spiritual books, all of this will help us to purify our mind.
Yeah. Yeah. Great.
Yeah.
So let me, any other thoughts, any other sadhanas that people want to share? Great. We have just about 5-10 minutes, and I thought I could do a little bit of chapter 4 introduction. Let's see if I can pull that. Okay, I don't know why it's going to. I'm not able to get to that screen today. All I have to do is stop share, right, Pradeep? I mean,
Not sure, Sunitha.
I think
okay.
you stop share and then you share it back. I think sometimes
Yeah,
it does
that's what I did. I stopped sharing, and
then if you have double screen, just check which screen is active.
no, I don't have double screen.
Okay.
I tried to select this another presentation.
Sometime if you share desktop or sometime you share presentation, that also matters. If you share
Yeah.
desktop, then anything you pull up, it will show. But if you share the presentation, then it will not show.
Now, okay,
Yeah, now we can see the presentation.
right. Yeah. So now we in chapter 4 is an extension of chapter 3 in the sense now we have, like, the chapter ends with Krishna talking about the desires and ultimately, giving us a glimpse of really what our true self is with that, the chariot example, right? So this shloka, this particular chapter now goes into a little more, I would say there are 3 aspects which are covered here. And basically, the idea is now he wants Arjuna to have a greater appreciation of the Vedic culture. Now, for this, he starts like all of us, when somebody tells us something new, many times we have this doubt, oh, you're pulling this thing out of your hat. I don't really believe you. I don't trust what you're saying. That kind of a feeling, sometimes we get this, right? So the shloka, the very first shloka in chapter 4 starts with Lord Krishna trying to tell Arjuna about how this knowledge has always been there. So he gives him a great appreciation and a respect for the knowledge itself. So it starts with there. And then another aspect of it, which you will see here, is in this day and age, for when we go to the university and for learning secular knowledge, like whether it's economics or chemistry or physics or anything, we look at the teacher as essentially just an instrument who is giving us the knowledge. And in this day and age of online learning, everything which is happening on a desktop, right? So you look at the computer, you look at everything as just as a means for which knowledge is shared. But in chapter 4, you actually look and you get this appreciation for really who is a teacher. Why does a teacher need to be respected? And how this teacher embodies all the knowledge. So that's the second aspect you will see in chapter 4. The third one, which is going back to what we talked about as a reason for all the rituals and understanding, this chapter goes into an appreciation of really the logic behind the Karma Yoga itself, and Karma Yoga leading to Jnana Yoga. That aspect is also beautifully covered in this chapter 4. You will see that. And I wanted to give you a glimpse of some of the most important shlokas that you would have read about Bhagavad Gita, which is Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhyuttanama dharmasya tadatmanam srujamyaham. That is the chapter 7, verse number 7 from this chapter. Then paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha dushkritam dharma samsthapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. That is also from chapter number 4. Another point which Meena long time back asked about the caste system. So in chapter 4, we will actually go into a lot of details about really what is a caste system and how is it really depicted in Bhagavad Gita, and how do we understand the caste system in its true meaning of it. Chatur varnyam maya srishtam guna karma vibhagashaha tasya kartaram apimam vidya kartaram avyayam. So we will discuss about this. And then, of course, our Brahmarpanam Brahma Havihir Brahmagno Brahmanahutam Brahmaiva Tena Gantavyam Brahma Karma Samadhina. The prayer that we say in front before we have our food. So this is also, we'll be discussing in chapter 4. So very, again, powerful chapter. I actually feel sad that we're leaving chapter 3, because I particularly learned so much from this, and I really appreciate all of you being there in this journey of chapter 3. And I look forward to seeing you back on, I think I have my next thing on January 5th. And in the new year, I look forward to seeing you all and in this next journey of chapter 4. So with that, I'll stop here, and wishing you all a happy new year. And again, we'll wish each other again as we meet back on January 5th. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramayah, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschit dukkha bhag bhavet. Om shanti shanti shanti. Om purnamadav purnamidam purnat purnamudachyate purnasya purnamadaya purnameva vashishyate. Om shanti shanti shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Let me stop sharing, and I will also